What is good, everybody? And it's a special talk today. I've got Ditty joining me again. We're going to be going over Beyond Light. If any of you guys watched the channel in the last, I would say 5 years, Ditty and I ran a Destiny news podcast called Destiny the Show. We did it for about 4.5 years. Hung up the headphones right after Forsaken came out. And both he and I have played Destiny 2 sparingly ever since. We came back for Shadowkeep and we tried a little bit of the seasonal stuff out. But for the most part, we were lapsed players, right, Ditty?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Yeah, Fairweather fans, coming back just for the expansion drops. Beyond Light just dropped, and a lot of our friends have been playing Destiny 2, so he and I both came back with the intent to play the heck out of this expansion. We wanted to do the raid, we wanted to experience the season. I think we have at this point, and so today, you and I are going to be talking about sort of our experience with Beyond Light. Overall, what we thought of it, ideas on the story, stasis, the season, the raid, the overall fun factor, and more. And just, I don't know if you guys listened to Destiny the Show back in the day, but we're Destiny 1 veterans, and I think it'll be a fun conversation for us to dive back in. So, Ditty, how was your week? Boy, that feels fun to say.
My week's been pretty hectic. I got some things cooking that are going to lead to a very promising future that I can't really share right now. But last we talked, it was right before the wedding and still married, so that's great. I'm a homeowner now, so I got a whole new life, and it's pretty great.
That's really good, man. The poodles are doing well?
Yeah, they're doing pretty good. You might hear them in the background once or twice throughout this recording here, but they're doing great. Flynn and Whiskey are as rambunctious as ever, and they love it. They love the new house. They love having a yard. Oh my goodness, it's great.
Apparently love chasing rabbits too.
Whiskey loves rabbits. He has a really high prey drive. He squeaked a rabbit. He hasn't killed any yet, but he's gotten pretty close. So,
is squeaking a rabbit exactly what it sounds like?
He put his mouth on it and the rabbit made a noise. So
I see.
It kind of stunned him for just a second. He didn't expect to catch it, and the rabbit got away, thankfully. So but we don't really like the rabbits because they ate Santic's garden over the fall. So she was not happy about that. So
there will be fences this next year, I can tell.
Definitely.
All right, man. So Beyond Light, you and I have played last month. We've done the raid a few times. I've got some notes. I'll just ask you, and we'll talk through each of them, sort of our overall experience. And I think to frame it for the listener, we're really just talking about, is Destiny 2 worth it in late 2020, early 2021, especially if you were somebody who loved Destiny 1. Ditty and I were daily players of D1 for like all 3 years. Probably not like an amount of gaming that you and I could sustain now. Our careers have changed. Right. We're older, that kind of a thing. But just beginning, what did you overall think of Beyond Light?
I loved it. So obviously being able to play on the PC since, Destiny 2 came out, that was supernatural just to get back into it. I thought the atmosphere and the environments were top-notch. Bungie does just a fantastic job in terms of setting a scene and executing very well with a new environment like this. And I had to watch a couple lore videos to catch up just slightly because I didn't know about, the darkness or the pyramids or anything like that. So I had to do that right before I jumped in. But overall, I would say I think Destiny 2 is on a really good path right now in terms of just story. Yeah.
And my overall impression echoes that. And there's a whole lot of potential. I do feel like when we talk about the story in a moment, I am so ready for them to do something dramatic because I'm a lore idiot and I still really don't know what the darkness is. And I still feel like we're waiting for that grand reveal of who's the biggest villain. I mean, it's kind of tough when we take down Oryx in expansion 2, right? Or 3, whatever.
Yeah.
Where's there to go after that point? But anyway, I agree with you. Their art team is insane. And how cool is it finally playing on Europa when 5 years ago we were talking about look at this concept art of this frost planet. How cool would this be? And then it actually lived up to it from an artwork standpoint. Obviously, all their play spaces, I would love more. Strikes and dungeons and places to explore. But the realization of just sort of the artistic theme and setting, it was like the concept art brought to life so long, 5-6 years later, right?
Yeah, they're finally finding their stride again with Activision gone. I think they're really starting to find that vision once more and doing the things their own way, and it's paying off.
Why don't we transition then to the story? What did you think of the story? I know you've run through it on multiple characters. I've done all three of mine, and I'll just be totally frank. The story to me in Destiny, while I enjoy it, is my roadblock I must overcome to actually do the stuff I want to do in Destiny, which is raiding or dungeons. So I guess I'm maybe not the best critic of these things because I don't follow the lore, and I honestly don't look forward to the story all that much. What did you think of Beyond Light's story?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to reiterate some things that we said just many years ago frequently, but I think really top tier Destiny rating and story was in Taken King still. Yeah. I mean, they had that overarching story between the campaign and the actual raid itself. I didn't really feel that same amazement this time around. However, I will say I still think everything in terms of lore with Destiny is super interesting. So I thought bringing in the stasis, having the new, I don't know what the internet has affectionately called the new trio of the Stranger, the Drifter, and Eris. They're obviously not the Vanguard, but just having that trio there be kind of the main story pushers, or so to say, that I thought that was great because it's a nice change of pace from Ikora and Zavala just being like, oh, it's the light is all you need to know, blah blah blah, and we got the darkness and stasis, and that ice subclass, let's just call it that, is super. It changes the mold, and the way they integrated that into the story I thought was really super interesting, but of course it left me wanting more.
Yeah, you brought up a lot there. I couldn't help but jump in. They seem to keep killing off the expensive voice actors. All the Firefly people just keep disappearing. So Ikora's basically been written out. And then Miranda Bakaram, if you guys haven't played, I don't know how I'm going to handle spoilers, but at this point, if you're listening to this, you probably have seen or know what the season is for Destiny 2 right now. Osiris's ghost just gets killed off screen in some comic. And you're like, wait, all of the Firefly people are going away. Did their guild or, whatever union they're out of in LA start raising the voice acting prices? Because it's just ironic, man.
Yeah, they became too popular.
Totally. I agree with you. Yeah, the ice subclass is really cool. Taken King, the way they handled it was fantastic. And I view this more as like a Rise of Iron, frankly. And it's hard because so much of the community build this is like, it's Destiny 3, bros! And then you play through it and you're like,
it's not going to be Destiny 3 until we find out what the darkness is, right? I mean, they've been building up the darkness since Destiny launched, right? If they haven't revealed what it is now, I'm almost scared that it's going to be super disappointing when they finally do, right?
Yeah, I felt like 7 years in, right?
Maybe the timing with, Bungie being on their own now with Activision, this being their first major release since that happened. Maybe they just didn't have time. But obviously we've said that those types of excuses before and it hasn't really paid off in the end. But I still want to know what the darkness is. I'm sure there's more details somewhere else in the Destiny universe, but are we, now that we're harnessing the darkness, right, with stasis, is it not an enemy? Or is the final boss going to actually be the Traveler or something? I don't know, but it's got to be, the payoff has to be massive. And until that happens, I don't think we're going to have a true Destiny quote unquote 3.
Yeah. And that's a great way to put it. Apparently Savathun's our new big baddie, and that's the direction we're going to be pushing. But part of me couldn't also help wishing that the season story of the Crow coming back, Aldrin in the picture once again. I sort of wish that was the story of this expansion. Obviously, very nitpicky, but to round this section of the discussion out, I think the story is just sort of, it hasn't really progressed all that much over the years through Destiny. It's there, they have huge potential, but we're running out of time for them to capitalize on that potential and have some big volta or shift to where, dude, I really hoped that we could have a Horde and Alliance type thing where, you mentioned, the Vanguard or whoever the bad boy Vanguard side is, you could pick who you want to go with. Are you going to have your social space on the tower and keep working with Zavala? Or is, the drifter going to take Eris and the stranger to some other place? And you could sort of stake your claim. Are you a light player or a darkness player, right?
Yeah, that would be really cool. Something like that. Yeah, definitely.
Rip Farm. We had 2 social spaces, right?
Does the farm still exist? I guess it has to, right? Oh my goodness.
The farming will happen.
Think of this is just off topic, but think of getting your job at Bungie as an artist, right? And then you're an intern, right? So you get to do the new artwork for the farm. And they're like, hasn't that been out for 4 years and you haven't done anything with it? And they're like, yeah, this is your initiation. You have to do something for someone that doesn't really, no one ever goes there, right? So I wonder if there's like a winter, frosty theme right now since it's wintertime. I don't know, but probably not.
Missed potential for sure. We'll touch on stasis in a second. I want to talk about our favorite part. I know this because we've raided together the last few weeks. The Deep Stone Crypt raid. One of the biggest reasons you and I came back is the fact that we had friends playing the game consistently, and I will continue to echo this. If you have friends who play Destiny 2 and you can play with them, it's a radically different experience. It's honestly the only way to play this game, in my opinion, is if you have a crew who can help you do the activities in the end game. And Ditty, I'll leave it to you to talk through the raid experience, but overall, dang, I love it. I have to say, I think it's my favorite raid in Destiny 2.
I'm not going to agree with that. Or in Destiny 2, yes.
Destiny 2, I'm not, no. Keep D1 out of the picture because it gets way too complicated there.
All right, yeah, I would agree. It's probably the best raid to date in Destiny 2. I think we had the Riven raid was like the King's Fall. It was the massive, huge raid, and now we're back into the I forget what the Wrath of the Machine type. So I really, obviously it was Fallen, so I'm going to relate it to Wrath of the Machine back in Destiny 1. But the pace, the setting, the encounters, I think were really, really well done. A lot of it was really confusing at first, right? And it does take a lot of coordination again, but it's not impossible to pick up with a crew. And our first raid attempt took about 3 hours. Our second, 1. Once you get the crew who knows what they're doing and you've done it a few times, that's an easily repeatable raid. And it's a lot of fun. You don't feel like it doesn't feel like a chore to do it every week, once you get the ball rolling with it. And I have a lot of fun with it. And and I think that's because my particular role in my specific scenario, I barely have any roles. There's people with operator and all this other stuff. And I'm just in this one encounter, I pick up the debuff and then go into the thing and they shoot it over above my head. Other than that, the entire raid, I'm just killing ads and I love it. I love it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's when you say you think it's the best raid in D2, I know not everybody will agree with it in terms of the hardcore people will go, well, this is too easy and too short. I think it strikes the perfect middle ground that Wrath of the Machine did, where it was a balancing act of mechanics, and it still had more challenge than your VOGs and your CEs. And that's where I think Deepstone fills. None of the roles are that annoying to play. None of the plates that you spin are that frustrating to do. And it feels like you're rewarded for that coordination, but also being a good Destiny player too. Maybe in time it won't age super well. Maybe we'll be bored of it in 6 weeks or something like that. I will say the jump puzzle, if you guys have not played through the raid, make sure you have your music turned on. And there's a section where, for me, I think it was my favorite moment in all of Destiny 2, where the music kicks in, you're doing a jump puzzle. I won't reveal anything more than that. But there's a real storyline and arc to the raid this time around that was cool. And I like that. And that, in D1, there were 2 things that kept me playing that game and why I loved it so much. The first was the raids. The second was Trials. And it's, to me, without raiding, Destiny is not Destiny. So I loved Deepstone Crypt, dude. That is by far and away worth my price of admission for this season, and I'm glad to hear that you liked it too.
Yeah, and I think you touched on just a really good point. Not a lot of people are probably going to agree with that. We think this is the best raid in Destiny 2, but you also have to remember that our perspective right now is as of a casual Destiny player. This is a raid that we picked up in 1 week, and we scheduled time with our crew and said 3 p.m. Sunday we're doing the raid, right? And everyone was on, everyone was pretty much geared enough, and we got through it. And now it's like, yeah, I could see us doing that again. And there's not a lot of things towards the end of when we were doing DTS, right, that really struck me like that. They're like, yeah, I could do that again, right? Because nothing really stuck with me. And, as a casual Destiny player now, Deepstone Crypt is a perfect implementation of a raid for Destiny 2. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, I agree. For you and I, as a lapsed player coming back, that was exactly what I craved. I think it's easier than Leviathan and more fun than a Leviathan.
Yes, yeah. Leviathan is just way too many puzzles, right? There's not enough encounters, like fighting encounters.
Yeah. It's hard because the raiding player base in Destiny 2 are getting better and better, like the top 1%, and the challenges that Bungie throws at them. This is still just an all DPS game. We were talking about this for years in Destiny the show. Raids can only get to a certain point of difficulty when everybody in the raid is a DPS player. It's not like an MMO where you've got a tank and you have healers and then you have DPS like melee and ranged. Everything is stand on the button, pass the buff, and then enrage white. That is like the furthest it can go until you start having roles. And we saw it like with the Vault of Glass, you can cleanse people, right? And there's certain pickups that let you do it. So it's really hard. You're going to have the hardcore player base who want things to be more difficult, which I know was the feedback for Deepstone Crypt for a lot of streamers. Like, hey, so many people did this day one. We want harder stuff, Bungie. But at the same time, too, it's hard. I can't imagine being a designer. Do you get what I'm sort of getting at here?
Yeah, it's a hard decision to make as a developer, right? Because when you're less than top 1% players crave harder content, like how do you justify spending thousands of hours creating something that's harder that only tens of thousands of people will play? When you have a player base of, I don't know what D2's player base, but let's just say 500,000, right? On a weekly basis. Like that's a very small percentage, and you have to really be able to justify the effort to put into that type of content. And that's probably one of the main hurdles that they have. I'm sure the developers would love to make something that would appease these people, but obviously it's a business decision that needs to be made.
Yeah. While we move on here, shout outs to Jim and Kat for getting the raid done the first 24 hours. They've got that emblem, some old school DTS guys throwing down in the world's first race, dude. Pretty rad.
Nice.
Okay, so transitioning here, we're still going to talk about like the season, the overall fun factor, what can Bungie do better, and then of course our thoughts on vaulting, with the final question sort of being, what do the next 3 years of Destiny look like? I want to just move into the overall fun factor of the season. I asked this because I finished my season pass this week, all the 100 tier thing. I thought it was super fun, very generous, good incentive to keep me playing. And the overall fun factor this season for me was absolutely awesome. But I was here for the new content. I was here for that story, stasis, the raid, and I know we have Vault of Glass coming next year. I just don't foresee myself probably playing the next season as hard as I did Beyond Light, just because it doesn't bring with it probably new dungeons, new strikes, new raids, that kind of a thing. What do you feel on the overall fun factor side for Beyond Light?
So this is going to be interesting for me because I just bought Beyond Light. I didn't do the season pass, right? So like when you're looking at the chart, right, you have the 2 rows. I didn't get the bottom row at all, so I missed out pretty much on half the gear. But
which on that point, wait, pause on that point. That should have been included if you bought Beyond Light. Like, if you're spending $40 on the expansion, why would you not just include the $10 pass, right?
Yeah, like when I unlocked Uldren, right, I ran up to him next to Spider, and like I tried to pick up a bounty. It says, this requires a season pass. And I'm like, oh, I guess I don't get to do this stuff. That's fine. And I just kept doing my own thing, which was fine because the overall fun factor for me was there. Like, I enjoyed this content, right? I mean, when Destiny 2 came to Steam, before Beyond Light, I had 14 and a half hours on Steam, right? Because I was on the Blizzard launcher before.
Yep.
right now I have 70 hours playtime of Destiny 2. So that's a big chunk of time that I've spent with Beyond Light, and it's obviously by no means that's obviously casual numbers, right? You know, we're gonna have some dedicated listeners or dedicated Destiny fans who have hundreds in Beyond Light already, and that's fine. But for the hours that I've played, the overall fun factor is there. It's still there. You know, since we didn't push to do the raid on the first day, I was very casually going through the quest and the storyline, and I had stuff to do every single time that I logged in, and I didn't feel like I was repeating a lot of the same stuff. Yeah, I had to do multiple strikes every week to do, get the pinnacle rewards. That's fine. That's part of the routine. But the quest lines, the dungeons, the campaign itself, and then the raiding, it was very rare that I was doing the exact same content over and over again like I used to, because there was stuff for me to do as a returning lapsed player. And that made the overall fun factor to me much higher than it probably could have been if they really force you into, you have to play Gambit for 80 hours in order to get raid ready. I probably would have hated that.
Yeah, it felt like getting to where you needed to be to raid this time was very doable in the way that you wanted to do it. And I took almost the entire year off after Shadowkeep. I played 1 month of Shadowkeep and then literally didn't look at any Destiny news and didn't pay attention to the game until about 6 weeks before Beyond Light. Then I came back, and just the amount of quality of life changes to this game from 2017 until now, it really is a sweet game in a good place. I do feel like Bungie continues to make some of the same mistakes that we saw all the way back in 2014 and 15, things that we talked about years ago. But on the whole, it is a fun game. They have the best PvE gunplay out of any title, like hands down. Their mobs, the way that they design encounters, it just feels phenomenal to play. And maybe
especially with the addition of stasis, right?
Yeah, that's exact. And
stasis in PvE is so much fun. We're not even going to touch PvP stasis because whatever. You think what you want. I mean, there's a lot of opinions out there on that, but like PvE stasis is super fun.
It is. And with the aspects and the mod system and all these seasonal accumulations of different particular builds, you can now do some redonkulous game-breaking PvE things. And that is what you and I have wanted for years, is to give players the customization level where they can truly design something special and unique to their playstyle. I mean, I got necrotic grips on the second week and started throwing in some different mods. It's incredible. And then you pair with it the aspects and stasis. I want to see the game push harder in that direction.
Yeah. No, it's not Armor like 2.0 update was a significant upgrade, I would say.
Totally. And I want to see the game go in that direction the next 3 years. Like, I really want to see them push the boundaries of the PvE side. One of my rules for coming back to D2 was that I wasn't going to get into PvP again, because I knew that I think it would just sort of diminish my fun experience with the game. It's been a very active choice to only play PvP here and there, because it's a conflicted relationship. I love Destiny 2 PvP, but I also think it's an unbalanced mess that lacks a lot of love that it needs. And that's a complicated statement, but you brought up stasis and PvP, and I think that just adds to the chaoticness. And as much as I love that game, if you start really playing PvP, I just don't think it's got the balance integrity necessary to probably to not get emotionally invested with it in a negative way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the only comment that I'll make on stasis PvP is, if they could make one adjustment, is that when you get frozen, when you break free, it doesn't drop your health down to one shot. Like if it was truly a crowd control where it just froze you, it would be better, but it's not.
The first PvP adjustments did impact that, and there's also, I don't remember what stat is associated with it, but one of your stats is associated with that, what you're just talking about.
I mean, I also play
say it because I know the comments will be like, "It's this one, you idiot."
Yeah, I mean, I also play a hunter and don't care about resilience or anything. Like I focus on grenade regeneration and super regeneration, and that's it, right? If it's a different stat than that, I don't care about it, which I probably should. But 60 hours of Beyond Light playtime. Come on, what more can I do?
Yeah, and for us, like, that's a lot of game time now in this part of our lives. So,
Yeah.
Vaulting, I want to touch on it, our thoughts on Vaulting, and then sort of round out the conversation with what does the next few years of Destiny 2 look like. For me, I told you guys, I loved this season. I played the heck out of it. I probably will not play the heck out of the next season unless it brings with it some new fun endgame activities to do. And Vaulting is, I don't know what to think of it just yet. It can kill on a season where the full goal is to just keep you playing the same activities for some new loot. It can possibly kill the motivation for that if you know that there's this rolling sunsetting of gear.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't really know how to phrase it. It's a catch-22.
Yeah, so obviously the main point of this video is like Destiny 2 in 2020, Beyond Light, is it worth it? That sort of notion, right?
Yeah.
Beyond Light, I would say yes, is worth it, especially if you're a returning Destiny player. If you haven't played Destiny in at least 6 months or a year or whatever, like when you come back to Beyond Light, I think you're going to be pleased with the content. Now, there's other seasonal updates that are not like Beyond Light. If they don't bring new story missions or dungeons or raids or strikes or whatever, what have you, there's a really big problem with motivation, like you said. You know, if the driving factor for a seasonal update is you get new loot, well, you also have established a notion multiple times in the last 6-7 years that Destiny's been out of sunsetting, of vaulting gear that you earn, right? Especially with the Beyond Light. That was a major update that sunset a lot of gear that people earned. It's no longer usable in endgame or at all. And if someone played 300 hours in, I don't know, Season of the Drifter, right? That's one that I remember, to earn a specific piece of loot that is now sunset. Now, I'm not saying that it is. I don't remember. Whatever. I'm just using examples. That's going to be a big problem, right? Like, why should I be motivated to play this season, this new season, for this new gear if I know later on down the line it's going to be gone, right? Because Destiny does a really great job of making a player identify with the character and the loot that they get, right? Like me, Stasis is great. I still love Shadow Shot. I still wear Orpheus Riggs pants, even though it was nerfed, because I love getting my super back for tethering a bunch of enemies, right? Here's the other thing.
You align with that for years.
Destiny 1, Dark Drinker, the sword that spins around, the Void Sword. I loved that thing. So when I heard there was a Void Sword that spun around back in Destiny 2, I was like, I want that weapon. So now Falling Guillotine, that's my heavy weapon. You cannot convince me Last Lament or whatever it's called is better. I don't care about the stats, right? I don't care if it does more DPS. It does not spin, okay? I don't care. I love my loot. So if it's gone because of a seasonal update, I'm not going to be very happy. So, I mean, there's my rant.
It's very fair, and it's going to be personal on the player. I understand from the loot side, maybe this allows them to introduce more ridiculous seasonal mods and more game-breaking stuff. Maybe it's more like a Diablo or a Path of Exile season where you play and you push the boundaries of the sandbox super far, and them vaulting this gear lets them remove it from the balance discussion. They don't have to be overwhelmed. But what I cannot stand and what did not deliver for me is the vaulting of actual content. I'm just going to let you know, in terms of strikes,
the planets,
the Pyramidion, the Festering Core, Savathun's Song, Strange Terrain, Will of Thousands, Tree of Probabilities, and a Garden World. All those strikes are gone. Okay, we lost 2 Gambit maps. We lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 Crucible maps. And then from the raid perspective, Eater of Worlds, Leviathan, Scourge, Spire, and Crown of Sorrows, gone.
That's a lot of content. I mean, logistically, obviously they had their reasons, but
yeah, it's getting big. And
as a player, it's like, well, I kind of want to go back and do those things from time to time, but
And how do we earn this seasonal loot? By doing the same 3 activities that's been the Destiny triangle for years, okay? Gambit, PvP, and strikes. That's a lot of strikes and Crucible maps to remove. That space is justifiable, in my opinion, and that didn't land for me And they're really going to need to think about those decisions moving forward, because naming some of those strikes, they're not all great, but they're fun and it's variety. And why is this a recurring theme in all of our recordings about Destiny, where it's Bungie goes back to the drawing board, it feels like, and removes a lot of stuff they've already built that would be still appreciated by the players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Maybe it will pay off in time, but for me, at least on the Beyond Light side, it hasn't yet. Okay, final question, and we'll cap this discussion off. We know about a couple more expansions coming for D2 in this sort of yearly cadence. What do you think about it? And do you think these will be the final expansions for the Destiny universe? Or do you think Destiny lives on for another 5 years past these next few expansions?
I wouldn't say I have much of an opinion on the future expansions, to be honest. I'll keep my ear to the ground. I'll keep my finger on the pulse of Destiny moving forward, because Beyond Light has really convinced me that Destiny's in a pretty good spot right now. I'm not going to drop everything when a new content release comes out, but I'll see, is it going to be worth my time? And, it's obviously I've spoken before about my, I don't like the numbers attached on the end of a game, right? So if Destiny 3 is announced, I'm not going to be excited because just with whatever, you just need to progress the story in these new content updates. It's the story is what really brings players like myself back, because that's really, I'll come into for the content drop, experience the story. I'm not going to do the weekly stuff for 8 months in a row. So when a new story content drop comes out, I'm going to be interested. So that's really where I'm going to leave that.
Yeah, well said. I'm the same way. I'll be coming back for the new content. I probably won't play the next few seasons that hard, and I have no idea what their future plans are. I think Bungie has something here that they probably could, I imagine, farm support out to a different studio, because I have to just look at their history. Bungie wants to do some new and different things. We know there's another IP in the works that they have, but will people still be getting Destiny expansions after these next two ones? I don't know. Time will tell. They are, in partnership, right, with NetEase. Got their $100 million from them after repurchasing Destiny back from Activision. So time will tell. I could actually see, though, Bungie moving on, maybe finding a partner studio to help them support the game. But if these are the last few years of the Destiny franchise, man, I will be back with my crew playing the raids. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being one of those players that just enjoys the game for a month or two and then takes a long break and comes back again. That seems to be, like, for me, the most fun way to do it, because you're not in the trenches of the drip content. And then you come back and it's an explosion of quality of life upgrades. Yeah. And you're like, oh, all the catch-up mechanics are there. You're getting loot left, right, and center. That was a real bear for the people who were in the trenches grinding it out. But what a fun experience this last couple months has been.
I think one thing that Bungie could really do to, if they are going to send Destiny off, is do an Age of Triumph type deal again. With like they did in Destiny 1, they brought back a lot of legacy content that was revamped. They refreshed Atheon, that raid. I just totally forgot. Vault of Glass, there we go. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
It came back with some fresh, slightly different mechanics, and all the gear was super great, and it was awesome to earn. And if it's like the last hurrah, do something like that. Bring back all of the fan favorite content. People are really going to enjoy it. You're going to get some returning players back in to re-experience that stuff for some new things. And I think they would have a lot of success if they did something like that. But, it's been a great almost decade of Destiny content. I think Destiny as a franchise has really set the pace for a lot of different games in the genre or in the gaming industry as a whole. So it's really been instrumental in a lot of things, I think.
Well said. I can raise my glass to another Age of Triumph. That sounds really fun to me.
Glass of water, right?
Oh, of course, yes. With that said, you guys, I think that's going to round out our discussion. I'd love to know what you think about it. Also, if you enjoyed this video and maybe would want to see something like this again, Vault of Glass, we're getting an updated D2 version of it sometime next year. It might be fun to throw our hat back in the ring down the road. So, if you enjoyed this, let us know in the comments. Maybe share this if you have some old DTS buddies who listened to the show back in the day. I know I'd be very thankful. And just appreciate your time, and thanks for the support on the show all those years. This has been a cool part of both Ditty and myself, like our lives. So, man, rad. I don't know what else to say, but thanks for listening. And Ditty, thank you for joining me, man.
Absolutely. Anytime. I had fun.
Excellent. All right, guys, have a good week, and we'll see you again very soon.